Cool. Hello, all. Welcome to the Open Source Inference Gateway meeting. Just a reminder, this is going to be in YouTube. If you're watching this in YouTube, hello. We are recording this. Please follow the CNCF guidelines. That summarizes to let's all be polite. With that, let's go ahead and jump right in. I believe I'm sharing my screen already. Yes. Cool. So action items from last week. I was not here. Looks like Damien, did you spin up new issues for the API changes to Inference Pool? Is that, I'm assuming that's what this was about?
Yeah, that AI is complete, so
Cool.
you can cross that out.
And then we added the Kube API linter. That happened. Consequences to be determined. But anyways,
hey Kellen, sorry to cut you off, but that AI, so the PR landed to add the linter to CI. That AI was for creating a PR to add that same capability to the make file.
Got it.
The last I saw that there is a PR there, but I think there was some discussion going on.
So no make target yet?
No, the PR is up. It's just under review. And I don't see Ricardo here. I was going to say thanks for that, but he's not here.
No problem.
You can see in the recording. Maybe he'll watch it.
There you go.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Cool. So the Inference Pool V1 API review. I think, and granted this was internal discussion, but I think our optional non-pointer usage, we came to a conclusion where we are going to use pointers and let that decision happen outside of Inference Gateway. I think that's a larger API machinery discussion.
Yeah, this has triggered like so many threads. I've been involved in a few of them, but there's a thread for Gateway API because this linter came to Gateway API first, at least in the world of APIs that I care about. And we made all the same changes there. And now we're talking about rolling back a subset of them. I think the most contentious item that we thought was, solid because it is reflected in API conventions, but it seems like there's still some open discussion and concern there is around the movement of structs away from pointers. So yesterday among Gateway maintainers, I think we reached consensus on that project to revert that part of the change. It's one of those things where we can always make the change in the future, but I hate to just, for the controller authors, this will be really disruptive. Anytime you switch from a bunch of pointers to not and then back, and I would rather just, if we make a change, do it once. And since there's still some ongoing discussion specifically around structs as pointers, I say we just roll back that part that feels contentious and do it in 1.1 in this case, 1.5 in Gateway K, like the next release, like not the current release, but the following one we can revisit it in.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sidesteps the, for anyone watching that PR, it's been a very long and contentious thread. And would like to, I am not the API machinery expert. I just, want to stick with the happy path. And I think that means reverting that subset of the change that we made for Kube API linter. Like most of the changes for Kube API linter would still exist. It's just that one specific subset.
Yeah, agreed. I think we do make the decision that's easiest and allows us to be the most flexible and stay out of, that discussion. I don't. It seemed like we became a cornerstone for that discussion, and I'm glad we're moving away from that. So completely agreed. Chiue, did you have any other things you wanted to add to that?
No, and another follow-up question could be related to the V1 inference pool status. I know like the inference pool status currently is optional, and since we decided to like get like pointer for all optional fields, I'm wondering should we also change the inference pool status to be a pointer? But I checked the Kubernetes upstream like a batch job or something. Even though the status is optional, since like the Kubernetes upstream also uses non-pointer, so I'm wondering whether there is some like Kubernetes history or something like that.
Rob,
I mean, this is so. There's been another thread about this too. I think the reality is it doesn't actually matter as much because status is a Kubernetes sub resource. It means that like updating spec is on / an API and updating status is on / status, and so like you can't modify spec and status in the same API call. So the convention has been to call it optional and not use a pointer. In reality, it doesn't really matter if it's optional, but we might as well follow the convention. It doesn't really matter what we call it. But I would just, for the sake of consistency, do what we've already been doing here.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, so we're essentially going to have a lot of the no-lid kube API linters throughout the APIs is what I'm discovering.
Unfortunately, anytime we're using structs, or we could remove, but I think they're, I think unfortunately, anytime we have structs that are optional, actually status would be one because it will be a non-pointer optional struct, which is what kube API linter wants. So one case where we're doing what we want with what they want with structs.
So I think the contention is API review is done by API machinery. Kube API linter is done by controller runtime, and I think they have separate worldviews.
Well, no, it's not even that, because it was a change that went to API conventions. But what I didn't realize is it merged less than 2 weeks ago, and apparently a lot of people haven't seen it yet. And I sure don't want to be the first one to. I don't want to be the guinea pig here, or the test. So for anything that still feels a bit contentious with that merge PR, let's pull it back.
For the kube API linter, I'm wondering, do we want to change the config to like always use pointer? So currently the config is that it will use pointer when required.
Sorry, so the only contention, if you follow that thread, is on optional structs. That's it. Okay. Every other part of the guidance seems to be consistent, agreed to, whatever. But optional structs, the suggestion is those should still be pointers. I'm fine with that. That's what we've been doing for the lifetime of this API and others. So let's not rock the boat. We can always make the change in the future if we want to.
Okay, so for optional like a built-in type, like optional int, we will still use non-pointer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, non-pointer, yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, so the optional structs use a pointer, and that doesn't matter whether we're using, we're going to default that struct or not. Is that correct then?
Yeah, okay. That's my understanding. Just anytime we have a struct labeled as optional, and this is what we've done for the lifetime of Gateway API, we just mark it as a pointer, which is actually going to feel more natural. It felt really funky to not do that, and so let's let someone else be first here, and we can follow their lead. Don't want to pay the pioneer tax on this one.
Yes, I agree. Cool. Any other open threads here? Sweet.
Danian, is your, or I guess that's a separate one, but your PR below, is that the one that just removes the default?
It removes the default. It sets parent ref conditions as required. And since it's required, we set the minimum items to 1 for food validation.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thank you. I remember this. Yeah, there's some
and then while I was doing this work and adding, updating the V1 alpha 2 to V1 conversion back and forth, the conversion utilities, I found a bug where we weren't actually setting the correct type metadata version between the conversions, so I fixed that. And there was something else in Inference pull status. Trying to expand some of the Go docs throughout the Inference pull status types. And then what else do I have here? Oh, on the topic that we just had, like for a parent ref, for example, the kind field is a pointer now, same with a namespace, since those are optional, and they default to the reference namespace for a namespace, and then kind we default to gateway. And this parent reference is consistent with what I see with Gateway API. As part of that too is a few renaming bits, right? So if you look at it, we go from a parent gateway reference to a parent reference. This kind of goes back to Tim Hawkins' feedback around another field of what the extension reference. So the docs essentially say a parent reference can really be any API object, but it's typically a gateway. And so from my standpoint, is like, okay, well, then it really should just be a parent reference, and then we document that it's typically a gateway, as opposed to calling it a parent gateway reference when it could theoretically be some other type of API object reference.
Yeah, this is great. These are really solid cleanups. I've just been taking a closer look. Yeah, thanks for this.
And candidly, I actually have this started. I have bigger changes, but I didn't want. I felt like it'd be just too much, and so I felt like, okay, these changes are really all scoped around inference pool status. Anywhere from like renaming the types, like I just mentioned with the parent gateway reference to just a parent reference, to if it's setting pointers or non-pointers, and making certain fields required or optional. But there are some other changes as I went through this process. I was up pretty late last night. I was like, wait a second, this is going to be just too much. So I want to make sure we're on the same page with this PR 1427 that I put on the agenda. But I would like to get one other PR in here for some other changes that are similar to what I found here, but are outside of the scope of inference pool status.
Okay, yeah, just let me know, ping me. I'm very curious what else you find here. Is it mostly, changes to Go types, or are there actual like API changes in here?
I mean, a majority of it is actually just the Go docs. We're really trying to expand the Go docs. I felt like that's lacking in a lot of places, or actually just incorrect.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I got to go back to, I pushed the branch to my fork. I got to kind of go back and do a quick little comparison. It shouldn't be major, but again, I just didn't wanted to just try to scope this PR, the initial PR, to inference pull status, and it looks like the linter is complaining again on this thing.
I don't know.
And a good reason why we need that make file. So what is it saying about conditions field is missing the following optional?
What?
Interesting. So this kind of goes back, Rob, to the discussion we had yesterday, is like, is full status valid if conditions are optional but a parent ref, right? Is there ever a case where a parent is going to, a controller is going to set parent ref but leave conditions out? Like, my understanding and looking at the API docs is like, a controller would set parent ref but has to at least set the accepted condition, right?
Yeah, I can't understand why we would want conditions to be optional. There's nothing else you can set here.
So this might just be another instance where I need to put block out the Kube API linter.
Yeah.
Okay, let me push a quick update on that. Anyways, hey, sorry for going a little overboard with this, but
no, this is really solid cleanup. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the chaos that Kube API linter has introduced. It was my idea, and some good things, but also some chaos along the way. So
yeah.
Cool. All right, Rob, you are. Oh wait, we had a hand near. Did you still want to go?
Yeah, I'll leave the question to the end. Not really critical.
Okay, sounds good. If you want to add it to the agenda, that would be great.
Yeah.
Sweet. We are about halfway, so I'm going to start time boxing items here. Rob, why don't you take it away? Let's give it 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think who on here is representing controllers familiar with Envoy or data planes in general. But one of the things that, as we're digging in, writing some tests for inference objective specifically, realizing that, hey, maybe that the goals we had in this doc, in this proposal, are a bit more complicated than we thought. So this really requires more gateways to weigh in on this. But if you're able to open that doc, Kellen, the second use case in particular, the traffic splitting example, we're relying on filters inside, like per backend inside HV route. So the idea is, if you want to be able to, basically rewrite a header name and say, 80% of traffic should go to model name foo, and 20% should go to model name foo v2, but it's the same backend, it's the same inference pool. The idea was, hey, you can do that with HV route now, and you can use the request header modifier filter. It's more verbose, more complicated than what we had in inference model, but it does shift responsibility from endpoint picker to gateways, which we thought would be a positive thing, right? Instead of endpoint picker doing a bunch of things that a gateway is capable of doing, why not do it at the gateway layer? Turns out that some gateways, will make this change after they've made the call out to endpoint picker, which is not particularly helpful. So sequence matters, and sequence is implementation specific right now. So what it means is if we set this, header request header modifier, and that actually happens after the endpoint picker callout has been made, endpoint picker is going to make a decision based off of the original, model header and not what is in the route. So we have a few options here, but I wanted to raise the problem because it seems significant, and it is possible, as far as I can tell, for gateways to sequence this so that the header modifier happens before the call out, but that could be a very disruptive change, I would imagine, to some gateways if they aren't already doing that. Yeah, here.
Yeah. So when you say some of the gateways are doing it after, so I think it would be good. I assume when you say some, you mean the majority of them.
I actually don't know. I know
Yeah,
that
so
GK is part of the sum. That's what I'll say, but I don't
okay,
know
yeah.
beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's worth at least getting the information from the partners that are,
Yep.
they're working with us, whether it's K Gateway, Istio, and others, just to understand where do we stand. If the problem is GKE only, maybe we can prioritize that internally in Google to make it work. I'm
Yeah.
sure we want to make it work with GKE, but essentially, if all the others are doing it correctly, then maybe it's fine to build on this path.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, +1. This was really just trying to start a conversation and figure out where other gateways are here.
Yeah, I think
But
we're mainly missing some of the so we have Daniel here for K Gateway, but we're missing some of the other
yeah,
conformant gateways. Maybe we can spin an issue and just tag the relevant people to get an understanding on this.
Yeah,
That's
I'd
fine.
love to make time for gateway implementers to chime in here. Danian, I would love to hear from you. Mike, I think you're an Istio voice, unless I'm mistaken. I'd love to hear from both of you, if that's
I'm
possible.
an Istio voice, but I cannot speak to the specifics of this.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, from my standpoint for K Gateway, I need to audit the code to see if setting the filters on the backend ref is supported, right? Because Rob, that is implementation specific, correct?
Yeah, I mean it is a fair number of gateways support it, but I think the bigger question is, my understanding is the path of least resistance when you're wiring this up, if you're using Envoy, would see the request header modification happen after a call out. I don't think that's strictly required. I imagine different implementations would have done this differently if you're based on Envoy, and the non-Envoy based implementations, no idea what their sequencing is.
Is there
David.
any use case for rewriting the header after the call? I'm trying to figure out how is it reasonable to do that? I don't know.
Well, I think the problem is that we are a backend ref to the user, but to an Envoy implementer, we're an XProp callout. So I understand the nuance there, because it's like you can kind of attach a callout basically anywhere in the chain. So for a user just reading HTTP route, it makes sense that it's like, okay, header modify and then call out, because we're kind of acting as a pseudo proxy.
Yeah.
So anyways, I know we don't want a special case inference pool, but it is. So anyways, I would love to hear more thoughts. I think Dave was next.
Yeah, you just need to be careful with this because I know some stuff doesn't work. So for example, if you add in Envoy specifically, because the use case I've had for this is in knative activation, right? So for example, we have our own activator component and we use the splits to then kind of hint to the activator what revision we need to spin up from 0. So kind of like analogous, right? Like you need to know, some component needs to know what the desired backend is after the split. The problem is with Envoy, you have on the back end, like I think the cluster is already decided. So then you can't make the changes. You can't make the xproc on the back, like on a backend filter, can't change the endpoint, was my understanding. But I don't know if that's changed recently in Envoy. So essentially, like these xprocs have to happen in the route filtering, not the backend filters. So I dug into this earlier in the year. Does anyone know offhand if that
Yeah, I'm
behavior
trying to
has changed?
remember how we have, you know, we had to do some funny work here to support traffic splitting, but I know they do. But actually, I guess I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. You're saying once you've selected the cluster, which is set of endpoints, which is inference pool in our case, you can't really change that if you make
You can't
a toggle
change
test.
the targeted host with xproc
Right,
on like a filter in the back.
yeah, which that is consistent.
Because you might want to change the cluster potentially too, maybe.
With this case, I don't think we're changing endpoints, right? We're just trying to.
No.
It's just the timing of when we're adding. If we choose a backend, when we're
Yes, you
if we're
are.
injecting a header,
Yes, you are.
by injecting a header.
The EPP is going to change the cluster. I mean, it's going to use the front. It's going to use the cluster that routes by the header, but you're choosing where to route eventually.
Right, you're choosing an endpoint. I don't think that's the cluster. I thought the cluster was the group of endpoints in the Envoy world.
Sorry.
No problem. So I think the issue here is around the timing, and we're kind of asking what other gateways are doing with regards to timing. Specifically, if you have a backend ref, if you're injecting a header, and it's to an inference pool, what is the timing expected of that? This is, I know it might be minor, but it is significant if someone's trying to, specifically for our use case of someone trying to roll out a new LoRa adapter. If Gateway doesn't support this and we don't make substantial changes to our API, we're basically losing this capability.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think we have a few options here. You know, if we find out, if we do a survey and GK is the odd one out and everyone else is sequencing in a way that's compatible here, we'll do what we can to find a solution that's, you know, unique to us. If this is a widespread issue that affects more gateways, then and there's not a clear path for them to support this as the API intended, it seems like we need to make some adjustments to the API. I'm not sure. To be clear, that would be likely on the inference objective side, or, you know, that whatever, you know, this is something that used to be represented by inference model, and we pulled it out of that layer and into basically HB route. But if that ended up being a poor choice, we may need to revisit it. Don't know.
cool. I think we should continue this on Slack. Sorry, we're over time here. I want to make sure we have time for everyone else. But definitely want to continue this conversation.
Well, one quick comment isn't this really just a question of how the controller takes the HTTP route and builds the, you know, the underlying proxies configuration?
Yeah, it's largely how this is translated to Envoy or your data plane of choice. Yeah. And Gateway API is unfortunately not opinionated on the order of operations here. And so different gateways may execute this in different order.
I see. Thanks.
Cool. So I think the next topic is myself. So something I've been thinking about, kind of discussing internally, and I brought it up in LMD yesterday, but the release cadence post 1.0, we were kind of monthly before, roughly 4 to 6 weeks, I think is probably a fair guesstimate. I'm suggesting that we accelerate and move to a bi-weekly release cadence. That comes with its own set of mess. I'm not saying we do that right away. I think that's something we work towards. I just wanted to bring that up here. The reason being is we have a lot of experimental features, some that we wanted to make into 1.0. Assuming we get the API review completed today, I think the goal was to cut an RC today. So I think some of those features might not make it. But we don't want those features to wait for like a month. So I think a 2-week cadence makes sense. We can move quickly on features. We're talking about some of the things that would need to happen here, and I'll put some notes as I've been thinking about this. We need feature gating, better automation for release. That's something that would really affect the maintainers. We would want release channels. It would be rudimentary where it'd basically be like 1.0 should be stable. We'd push, whatever patches we need to make sure that happens. There probably be some other things. We need solid road mapping. We need solid communication on who's doing what. Really want to push most of our communication into GitHub so everyone's on the same page. And that's been a pain point. Cons and open roadmap. So I think this would work for LLMD. My hope here, one of the preconditions, and then I'll let hands go, but the preconditions is that the gateway side should be stable, so we're not thrashing upstream implementers. It would really just be experimentation on the EPP, so we can move quickly there and keep inference pool relatively stable. I'm not sure which hand was first between Rob and Nir, but
I've talked a lot. Nir, go for it.
Okay. So I was actually thinking about it after the call yesterday in LLMD, and I'm not sure if it's a good suggestion or not, but I'll say it anyway. So what are your thoughts about having just tags and not releases? So maybe we can keep the, monthly release, and in between like a bi-weekly tag that is not a release, but allows to experiment with some experimental features in between. And then when we create a tag, of course, it also triggers all the automation of the Docker images and these things.
I thought about that too. I think the problem if we just tag it is you're kind of saying it's release without any of the guardrails we do to try to shore up a release. So like if we just tag something in main, if we need to push a patch, I suppose we could just here's tag dot one or whatever. So it's possible. I think we'd want to cut release branches, but yeah, maybe I don't know. And that is something to think about because we are going to be quick, and the whole idea is to say this like this is unstable. So if we just use tags and just keep it in main, I don't know. I don't love it, but if it kind of slims us down, I don't know. I'd have to think about it more.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much it slims down the process because eventually we do need to do like at least most of it. but I do feel like a biweekly is might be overhead to do it.
Yeah, and we would need to cut that down, which I think some of these things we want to do anyway. But Rob, and then between, well, we'll let Rob go, and then the other two hands can figure.
Sure. Yeah, I am all for a more frequent release. I think 2 weeks may be a bit fast, but whatever the frequency is, we will need to find a way to let API changes, which usually take longer to mature, find a way to gate them, guard them, whatever, so they don't, let's say we're halfway through an API change or addition and we hit the release, whatever that happens to be. I don't want that to hold up a release. I just want to make sure that we can, iterate somehow in another thread on API changes without blocking releases. That feels like it's a prerequisite for faster releases. As you're seeing here, like API review has been a long running process. And yeah, just don't want that to be a long-term burden on overall release cadence.
Between Shmuel or Chong, I'm not sure.
Shmuel, I think you are first. Go ahead.
You can go.
I think you are before me. Go ahead.
I'll go then. So I think one of the issues with using is a simple tag. Well, so there are two issues with tags. One was raised was naming conventions, but I think you could name a tag as some sort of you say 1.1, we come out with 1.1.0 dash pre 1, and there's pre 2 and pre 3 and pre 4 until we get to the actual 111. That could solve the problem with the naming conventions and also indicate that it's a pre-release version, it's not a release. Now, having said that, there's still the issue that was raised again yesterday in the L&D call about because we mentioned you could just use a shot tag, without a tag, and still, you can pull the upstream stuff downstream and use, what's right off the main, which is really no different than using a tag at the end of the day. It's just a slightly weirder tag, but it's a tag, right? So I see Kellen agreeing with me. And the issue that was raised there was that you're kind of, in the Wild West then, because you're on the head, you're on the edge of the head. Now, having said that, other comment is, think about rapid, every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks a new release. We've seen now several new features that were very large and therefore need to be broken up into several PRs in order to be reviewed properly and dealt with properly. And the question becomes, will you have, halvesies over a release? Okay. You come to your release date and it's only half there, and now what happens? I think that has to be taken into consideration as well. And that's it, I think.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of points. Also, having worked with the GKE kind of release channel and release a bit, I think the difference from a release, from a user perspective, the difference from a release versus some SHAR, I think it's the message we're sending, right? What additional qualification or quality we're adding to that release versus a random GitHub commit. If not more, than from a user perspective, there's no change, right? It's pretty much no change. I mean, it's some sort of tag like v something pre something like reads better than a hash, but practically, what's the difference? I think we sort of have to define that. And the other aspect I think is having. I kind of like this idea of having some sort of like we call it release channel or whatever, some sort of rapid thing that I think it helps us in a way that if we do like biweekly or whatever, then it's just a timing thing. We're not committing to a major release like we have to plan. this feature need to go in, those probably not, but if we just do like every 2 weeks, we cut something, like whatever we have at the best, the latest and the best, goes to this rapid channel. We do not need to plan for that. I think I would like to try to minimize the overhead adds to our release managers, right? Just by doing more frequent release, adds more overhead, we may hurt us the velocity overall. Like, I want to be mindful of that as well.
Agreed.
Just think about a model. Maybe we'll just do a release channel, just cut the latest and best. But we don't know. It's something like the tag, the release channel, the rapid name, whatever signifies this is not something that we have the same quality as a official release.
Yeah. So here's my challenge. Let's say we cut the RC today. Everything goes beautifully. Everyone did a great job. Nothing wrong with the RC. We cut 1.0. Tomorrow we get PRs for flow control, SLO prediction, and some other amazing feature that some contributor we didn't know existed just dropped it. We want those to be tested, and we want those to be tested in LLMD because that's where we want to cultivate that community as well. Basically, if they miss the cut, it's potentially 6 weeks or more until that hits LLMD, right? Because we need to cut our release, then LLMD needs to cut theirs, and then someone would finally see it. So it's like 2 months, which I don't know. Inference moves so fast, and I think we need to find a way to move faster too. I don't think there is a cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So I think it's just deciding if we're okay with the cost. Some of that being it might get a little chaotic. There might be some overhead on maintainers. It just depends on the trade-offs, and we need to decide which is more valuable. But I'm happy to open an issue on this so we can keep having a longer form discussion and capture some of these thoughts in text. I think everyone's making great points. Nir, go ahead, and then we'll cut for time.
Yeah. So just last sentence, at least for me. So I think if previously I said two weeks I think it's too fast. I think at the same time 6 weeks is too long. So we need to find some compromise in the middle. I think 4 weeks, something between 3 or 4 weeks is a good choice for everyone. I think it shortens the time to get a new feature in a formal release, but then it's not too short and it's not too long. I think it's something reasonable in the middle.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. And maybe one of the things, a culture shift, is we just cut. We don't wait for things, because I know we've kind of tried to wait, and it's like at this date we're cutting something, and then we'll patch RCs if they're nasty, but we just want to stay on this cadence. But anyways, moving along to actually talk about the 1.0 RC cut. I think our API review will be resolved today. I'm not sure what time, so I don't know if I want to ask any of the three of us, Abdullah is out, to cut an RC today, and then that would push it to Friday, which is just an RC, so we could cut it. I just want to discuss with everyone timelines when we want to actually cut this thing.
Yeah, I feel like Inir has a good point that we are not looking at the agenda right now on your screen share, Caroline. But I feel like the other thing my concern would be is we don't have a clear path for traffic splitting right now. We might the current path may be fine. Hopefully it is. Hopefully it's just a GK issue or something like that. I mean, I don't really love GK only issues, but it would simplify the OSS bit. But if that becomes a more problematic thing. We'll have to decide if we want to release just without a viable path for traffic splitting. Maybe that's our least bad option. I don't know. But that will need to be a call. And maybe while we have more people on the call, it's worth having that discussion. What do we do if we get feedback from other gateways and they're in a similar state? Do we just remove traffic splitting from the scope of this release? Do we hold off and, wait, reevaluate? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
Rob. So I think this is a very good question that you raised now, but I'd like to bring the question back to you. So what are your expectations, assuming none of the gateways we're working with, none of them support traffic splitting as we need? What do you suggest? So I think there are a lot of people just waiting to see the V1 out. And I'm not sure we have like a clear solution at this point. So I don't really know what would be a good suggestion. So do you have like any thought on
I'm
this?
pretty stuck right now too. My gut tells me that maybe we just have to move forward with the release. The problem that we're describing is basically unique to our alpha API surface, so that can evolve pretty quickly. If it is, if it's or our gateways can, like, we have options. It's not really a problem with inference pool. It's a problem with, so the thing we're trying to GA is not the problem here. I don't know. So I think I would be tempted to just move forward anyway, but that I'm not the one to make that call.
So maybe a question to some of the experts in Envoy, if there are experts here in the call. Is there a way to do it like not through the HTTP route, maybe through some header mutation or something like that in Envoy, configuration of Envoy, something like that? Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue with Envoy. It's just, how do we do it, right? And I think because backend ref filters is implementation specific, that's where there's that gray area within the gateway API surface. Right? It's a matter of how implementations want to do it. Some implementations may use policy and attach a policy to the route instead of using a backend refs filters.
And another point I'm thinking about, so Rob, you mentioned in the previous part of the call that Gateway API is not opinionated about the place in the sequence where this is done, the header rewrite. So do you think it's possible to be opinionated and make the gateways change their implementation?
Also one knows my
I mean, I would love to do that. The reason we've avoided being opinionated is that, well, it may be possible for, let's say, Envoy-based implementations to have custom ordering. Maybe another data plane can't, or maybe maybe another data plane X always has to happen before Y. All right, it's more complicated because Gateway is trying to be a multi-data plane API. I think Mike's point is 100%. We should at least survey and ask implementations here. Yeah, I don't have yeah. I think what we can do is we can, very clearly from the point of that this isn't even really a gateway issue as much as it's like, we could say for implementations of inference pool, they should make the call out to the inference pool extension after they've completed any endpoint picker, after they've completed any HTTP route filters. We can probably say that. Maybe.
Is it
again, we need to
possible to
confirm that's
do?
broadly implementable, but yeah.
Is it possible to add it to a conformance test, like to make sure gateways are doing that?
Probably. I mean, we need to first make sure this is broadly implementable. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But if it is, then we could consider that as well.
Yeah, that would make sense, right? Let's see if it is broadly implementable and get those implementations rolling, and definitely adding a conformance test for the kind of the strict traffic splitting based on the backend rep filters would be needed to ensure implementations are conformant. And then I have my hand up too, just for a couple things. So just taking a quick look through the K-Gateway code base, it looks like K-Gateway should support the traffic splitting using backend ref filters, but again, needs to be tested. So I'm going to create an issue, and that would be a pretty high priority for me as soon as we get done with some of the other API review work. And then going back to the release, it's like, I feel like with the V1 release, albeit Inference objective is still an alpha API, it just seems weird to have a V1 release and like, oh, by the way, here's a caveat that something that did work before no longer works, and we know that people want this functionality. That just seems kind of odd.
So on that happy note, let me chime in. So I have a different question to ask: is how many gateways, let's say within 1 week we have a 1.0 release, okay? After all the RCs and everything, how many gateways will support Inference Gateway Release 1? Because I know, for example, Istio has said explicitly until November they're not supporting it.
I mean, I can speak for GK. We have every intent to support it within, single-digit weeks, hopefully like mid-September. I don't know, but soon.
Yeah, and K Gateway is going to support it nearly immediately. So I've been going through the painstaking process of essentially tracking Inference extension main, and pretty much every other day having to rewrite the implementation as the Inference pool API changes. And so yeah, I'm going through that painstaking process, and I expect K Gateway, like I said, almost immediately to support V1.
That's great.
Oh, and with that said too, I'm also working on having Istio support V1. Now, Shmuel, to your point, I can't control the Istio release cadence. So, if others are on the call, I think Mike could probably chime in there, but I am working on a PR, and it's good to go as of 2 days ago. But again, Inference pool is changing on a daily basis. But with both Istio as well as K Gateway, I expect near immediate support. K Gateway, we have a little more wiggle room with releasing, but in the near term, we do cut K Gateway images on a daily basis against main. And then the question would be is, when do we have an official release? And I think that should be timed out pretty well too. I think we're targeting mid-September for the next release off of main, which would be 2.1.
So I would say I guarantee this Istio folks will be very happy to get a PR that supports this. They'll be happy for the help. The issue is the release cadence. They have a release like right now, apparently. And their next release is in November. And they stated they were not willing to release this sort of an API change and a dot release. They only want to do this on a major release. Minor release, to be more precise, a minor release, not a major release.
Which project is that you're referring to?
So I had a conversation, Mike, you may have been part of it. I the second I can't remember who was part of it, unfortunately. So I'm a bad person for that. But so I asked about support for V1, and they said that 1.27 that's going out right now, or maybe have gone out already.
For Istio, yes. Yeah, that all sounds correct.
Istio, right? So that's supporting, Inference Gateway 0.5.1. As far as V1 support, just supporting, V1 with the new inference pool API, they said they wanted to support that at 1.28, not in some 127.1. I asked that question explicitly and got that answer.
Okay.
That seemed like a policy. It was more of a policy question, policy issue than anything else.
Yes, yeah. Patches are just for like bug fixes and things like that. And yeah, we wouldn't introduce like a new feature version support in a patch release. And yeah, so our next minor would be November. So that timeline's accurate.
Cool. We're at time. There are a lot of open threads. I think I'm going to take the AI to open up a bunch of discussions and start linking them in Slack. Yeah, I think we should not drop these conversations. So thank you everyone who contributed to them. But yeah, we'll talk next week. Thanks all.
Well,
Hi, everybody.